welcome. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Chicago. I now live in California. I am 26, about to be 27 years old.
I could hear
Um,
it in your voice, the 26 versus 27.
yeah. um, yeah, I discovered your page from Instagram. I like the content that you post there.
Okay.
Um, yeah, disproving a lot of non-truthful claims and just fun, fun things and some deep things as well. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so when I saw you were on TikTok,. I just had to follow. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I
Thank
am an
you.
agnostic atheist.
Agnostic atheist?
Yes, correct. So, like, I don't, for the audience, I'm just in case anyone isn't aware of that term. Agnostic meaning I don't know for sure whether there's a God or gods. And atheist meaning I don't believe, I lack belief that there
Okay.
is a God or God. So, when I see the question, why do you disbelieve? What does it say? Islam, family, God, country, and what order? Is that what that
Well,
says?
those are two different questions, but yeah.
Okay, because I have a I have an iPhone, but like it's the smaller version, so the crop it's just a little. Your heading is a little bigger than the phone space. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it does. Actually, I was just noticing that on my second screen over here that next time I need to pull that, get a little margin for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, my lack of my disbelief is just purely because of I guess, and I'm still studying. I'm still doing a lot of like deconstruction still myself, even though it's been years of me not identifying with Christianity. I was born and raised basically a preacher's kid. I was adopted and raised by my
Oh,
uncle.
wow.
And yeah, he was a preacher. And he still is a preacher. Um, but actually, I would say about 6 months ago, he came and visited California, and we actually sat down and had dinner and had a conversation about this very topic. Um, this is one of the topics that keep us not talking very much. Just one of them. Um,
Yeah. That's
yeah. So
unfortunate, but that's kind
so
of what happens.
yeah. So you know what, I just said, you know what, I felt like discussing this topic because I wanted him to just get a grasp a little bit of how I felt growing up and how I feel as an adult and how my perspective has changed. And the same reason I explained why I disbelieve to him is what I'll say here is just that and you know what's interesting, like I actually like mentally quote this every day for some reason. Like it's not even like a creed or anything, but it's just like when you get to talking to people and wanting to encourage logic and reasoning, you can't
Yeah.
help but reiterate some of these thoughts that come to mind when it comes down to um, just thinking rationally and just trying to live a life, not wasting time and energy on things that don't seem to matter. So I say like I don't believe because there's no demonstrable evidence that verifies the claim of any god or gods existing or ghosts,
Yeah.
souls, heaven or hell or demons the same. And the burden of proof lies on those who make the claim. And
Do you,
the
do you think there is no evidence at all?
well, if there's any evidence, it hasn't been discovered yet. so, so
Okay.
um, I there, you know what? That's gonna make me update the way I present that now.
Because that's something that some people say no evidence, and I remember about a year ago listening to Tom Jump. You know who T Jump is on YouTube.
I'm not sure, but I'm interested
Oh, you
now.
should check him out. He's actually quite brilliant. But he says there's no evidence, and he has good logic, and I couldn't quite follow it. So, and to me, there is evidence for supernatural things. I just find it incredibly thin and feeble. You
I
know,
often wonder if it's just language thing because there's phenomena of for sure that I can't necessarily explain or I don't quite understand myself.
such
And I
as
just never think,
give me an example.
well, I mean. some stars that go supernova turn into a new star. I don't really understand. Like, and obviously I'm not, like, I obviously haven't studied for that. So um
Okay.
maybe um maybe back in the, I'll just say back in the day, like before common era, like maybe people would have assumed, a shooting star was a miracle, like I don't know.
Well,
um
I can answer that one for you pretty quick. The stars don't become new stars. If the star goes, if, it depends on the mass of the star. Some of them just burn out and then collapse down to a neutron star. Some of them are of a certain mass that they will explode, and that's the supernova, right?
right.
Supernova causes it just explodes and spreads out. It turns into a nebula.
So
There's
I may have read something that wasn't true. I'll have to, like,
That's okay. I'm just trying to give you some small bits without going
because
into
they
too
didn't
much
say they didn't
detail.
say that all supernovas turn into new stars. They said it, like, sometimes it does or something. But like I said, I don't know. You know better than I do.
Well, so I mean, this is not just for you. This is for whoever's listening too. So, if you don't mind me giving a little bit
For
of
sure. Go ahead.
explanation.
Yeah.
So, a supernova just it goes out. It basically is a field of expanding gas, um, and over time, when if you get enough mass that can combine back together, be it from the overlap of multiple stars, because actually most stars up there are actually double stars, so there's more mass usually than one star going on. Um, in long time, meaning like a couple billion years later, you may have an area that generate or has enough gas that can start to come together. And it doesn't take much. I mean, if you've got two molecules that get close enough to each other, they're going to come together, right? If it's the proper ion, proper charges and stuff, two hydrogens will come together
Right.
to a helium, and then it just kind of continues from there. So they can become parts of new stars eventually, just like a carbon that came from a carbon atom that came up from a star that went supernova 6 billion years ago is probably in me right now, right?
Right.
So it became a new thing, but it didn't. It's not like a star can ever become a new star.
Good
If
point.
nothing else, it separates itself all over the place and it can never come back together in that same mass. So, so we can knock that one off.
Yeah. Hmm. I
So, how one of the saddest things is always the disconnection from the family. How are you able to communicate with your family now in terms of religion? Do you have to avoid the issue? Can you touch it a little bit, or
well, I never brought it up necessarily to, as they might say, convert necessarily. It's
yeah,
not my goal to convert
yeah,
anyone. When I'm invited to events pertaining to religion, I've had to be firm and say that that's just not my thing.
yeah?
Um, it's like I said, there are other reasons that I have a distance between me and family, but um, that is not something that I'm really not sure that that's something that I could, and I'm going to put it on me. Like, I don't really know if that's something that I could discuss again, because
Mm,
what I kind of discovered was that it's easy to talk to strangers about this topic,
yeah,
but people
sure.
that you grew up with, sometimes they can strike a nerve that
Yeah.
and then you realize, well, either I got, some personal um progression, some growth and patience or something, or maybe I just need to accept that, like, my boundaries won't always be respected, even though I reiterate myself, so many times.
Well, you don't have to be a converter. First off, I would
Right.
say, it's something some people choose to be. but you don't have to. I would think that the priority would be family communication and family contact.
Well, yeah.
This is why I don't like I hate so much the idea of people getting thrown out of their families. Don't ever
Yeah.
talk to that person, shunned and stuff. If nothing else, can't we just like be a family and just avoid the issue? In like kind of like a worst case, that should be the worst case. So,
Hmm. Well, I will say that I brought that up to say that even though like I have no intention to convert or anything,
mhm.
um, wanting my boundaries to be respected, but also um, I have ADHD. Bear with me. Sometimes I lose my train of thought.
That's okay. I do the same thing. It's not ADHD. It's getting old. So
Oh,
I can totally relate.
oh, for sure. Awesome. Thank you.
Um, well, okay. So let me
I was
say
also
this
gonna.
then.
I remember now. I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say
Yeah.
that basically like I also wanted to be understood. I wanted them to understand what religious trauma was and how that could affect how I feel and yeah, my lack of patience at times. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, see, now that's a whole nother level there because you should not be tolerating trauma, constant trauma. Um, and of course, you know about the Recovering from Religion organization, right?
I have not heard of that. Most of
Okay.
I'll have to look into
Please,
that.
please look that one up. At least be aware of it. It's called Recovering from Religion. It is a nonprofit organization. They give counseling for free, or will, at the very least, will direct you. But they will give you some counseling for free. So if that's something you need, if you're coping with religious trauma, and especially if you're getting repeatedly hit by it, because that's what their family does to you, they can help you. They can give you some coping skills. So please
Yeah,
write that down and remember that one.
gotcha. Um, yeah, my whole family is religious, like that. But I'm not like you in the sense where I necessarily hold on. I'm grabbing my journal
Thank you.
because I don't want to forget.
Okay. Thank you, Ethan, for that, roses.
um,
I'm going to say that another thing you can do in terms of not going too far with this is that uh, think of it like a different analogy, a little analogy here. If you're in a room with a group of people and someone says a really racist joke, what do you do?
oh, I ignore them.
Do you ignore them?
I mean, it
See,
depends. It depends on if do I know them? Are they around people that I know? Like, is this a
well, maybe there's a scale there, but I want to suggest that it would be useful to at least point out that you disagree, because being silent sometimes gives um, life to a bad idea, and might imply to others that everybody believes this thing
oh, I
that's
see.
listening to this. So if you're an atheist, particularly you're being bothered by this, it would be useful for them to know, if you think it's possible, and everybody makes their own decision at some point, that you are not a religious believer, and then do the normal things that you do. Demonstrate that atheists are not demons and evil people. So, if nothing else, that's like a level two, a low level thing, and that's useful. You're not going to try to convert them. They may try to convert you because that's kind of what they do, and then that's when you can start to define some boundaries. So open up the conversation just enough to have the boundary without getting into explanations necessarily about this is why I believe, because they may not want to have those conversations. That would be a level three if they wanted to go to that. And if you're talking to them about religion, you don't even have to criticize their religion. You can go with a more cultural anthropology kind of a thing. Please help me understand why you believe something differently than I do, and kind of leave it at that sort of polite level. So So you got to find your own level, and it may just be that you have to not confront them at all. But I'm concerned about the idea that you. I don't know if you are still having trauma or not, so you don't have to say here if you don't want to. But if you are still having trauma, then you should talk to that organization. That yeah, I would not be happy to think about you staying in a situation acting the same way that where the trauma continues.
Well, no, I'm no, I live in a whole nother state. They no, I I've I guess you could say I've basically restarted my own personal life. Like it's been like that for years,
Yeah,
but since my uncle had visited me, I felt like I felt it was a great opportunity to have that conversation. Because I could have,
nice.
because he invited me out to dinner. I'm like, okay, yeah, I think this is a good opportunity to get some of this off of my chest and talk to him. Um,
And was he okay with that?
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
because and before we even linked up in person, because he texted me, that's what I or no, he called me first, and I told him that that I wanted to talk about something sensitive and you know
Yeah.
get some things off of my chest. No, no, I'm not a spring chicken in this area. It's been years, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I
yeah,
mean,
I've been very patient. Yeah,
that brought you that much closer together, at least in terms of understanding each other, even if you didn't turn eventually agree on anything. So
yeah,
within
but
family,
I gotta
that's a major
say,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, I gotta say though that this life is like it is. It's not mandatory for me to necessarily like in my opinion. I've come to the conclusion, and don't get me wrong, I'm still like I still feel I'm still working on myself. I'm still I mean, and I think that's just a life thing anyway, but I'm still progressing, but it is not like a mandatory thing for me personally to reunite with said people because like I said, there's other issues that I'm not going to talk about on the live that
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I mean, I'm when I feel like have the strength to try, I will, you know. But
Yeah.
it's not a mandatory thing for me, you know.
No, it's up to you. You know, and it's there's some value to into letting others know that aren't that you don't know. We all help in some small ways sometimes to normalize atheism in the culture,
Yeah.
right? So I mean,
Because you know the question that you asked me, like it was like a hypothetical situation in which you know someone was said a joke that might have been offensive. I and maybe this is my military experience, but I operate in the mentality of survival. And so, yeah, if some random person is saying something I don't like, I mean, you really don't ever know who you're dealing with. You know what I mean? So I've learned to mind my business.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I know what you mean now. Like,
Well,
in a,
use your judgment. I mean, the
yeah,
time that it happened to me that always comes to mind is I'm a pharmacist, I mentioned, and I was doing registry work, and I was sent to a hospital mid California, which is an urban, rural area,
cool.
and I was there with like two other pharmacists and some techs and stuff, educated people, and they started telling racist jokes, and
Oh no.
I just I felt it was important to say that guys, I think you're not everybody believes this way. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I made it known that I was not okay with it because I didn't want them to get the idea that this was sort of okay for anybody to do. We're in a time right now, a political time, where some of our worst behaviors are being reinforced. So I think that's a piece of also that makes it important that we do speak up if we can, when we can.
I did have a question. You mentioned a YouTuber earlier. Do you remember their name or the name?
Tom Jump.
Tom
He,
Jump.
he goes by T Jump.
Awesome.
You'll find him on YouTube primarily.
Okay.
He's a very classical thing. He's always slouches back on a couch like this. He's a very very low energy
Yeah.
guy, but he's got a brilliant mind. So look back at
Awesome.
some of his older philosophical stuff and some of his. He's probably as good as Matt Dillahunty
Oh yeah, okay.
in terms of logic, and I've never been able. I've never seen anybody better than him and Matt and possibly now J Mike is a new guy. Follow complex apologetics better than he does. So
Yeah. I see other people want to join, so I'm gonna hop down. But it
okay,
was really nice talking to you, and if we can chat again, that'd be cool. But I don't want to hog it up.
I'll be around.
Awesome.
Talk to you next time.
Have a great one.
You too.